What's up, my friends? You know, that's a little bright. I think I'll pull that down. There we go. That's better. Alright. See myself here in the camera. That's funny that I actually do watch myself when I make a video. It's very strange. It's as if I'm talking to myself. Anyway, here I am. Carpo. Back for another installment of Carpo's Corner. I've made a lot of videos and I've talked about a lot of subjects. And I'll tell you that 90% of the time when I start to make a video, I don't even know what I'm going to talk about. At least half the time. 90% of the time I don't have a subject or a written out idea of what I'm going to talk about. But, you know, at least half the time I do have a subject. But it's just awesome that I've been able to gain so much from all of you and the understanding that I've gained from people. When I first started this channel, when I first really started using this channel was about 2011 or 12. So I think it was in early 2012 maybe. So it's been about this has been about 4 years now. And the time really does go by fast. You know, when I first started this, I said, you know, I'm just making a few videos talking about, you know, the end of the world, apocalypse shit, prepping, making sure that you're ready for, you know, when the shit hits the fan. Because, alas, isn't that the biggest... Go home, spider. Big old spider crawling on my desk. All the different phases that I've gone through, I've been able to basically document using this method. But early on, there were a few of you who started... I should say, I don't know how many original subscribers I still have, if any. I know people who have been with me for at least 2, maybe 3 years now. But I don't know if any of you if any of you started watching me way back when, let me know, because it's really interesting. I only had, you know, a couple hundred subs at that time. And to me, that was an amazing number of subs. And I thought, why are this many people watching me talk about stuff? Because ultimately, I didn't intend or really assume I would get any views. Nor was I trying to, and that was just the thing. And so for a period I got kind of excited, and so I started putting a lot of keywords in my channel, things like New World Order, Illuminati, conspiracy, because those were things that interested me. And it attracted a buttload of problems, a buttload of problems, with people who wanted to argue about, you know, the negativity that's going on in the world and talk about how everyone's part of a conspiracy. And whenever I tried to even talk a little bit of sense and say, look, there is a bigger picture, but come on, you've got to be, you know, you can't suspect your neighbor. But, you know, anyway, the point is I backed out of that whole genre of, of discussion and moved on to something more enlightening, which for me was like Buddhism, Zen, that type of thing. So about 2 years ago, when I was working in this house in the West Hills, I talked a lot about that. I went up for my kind of meditation-like moment in the morning where I used to film the sunrise sometimes, and I'd post videos of the sunrise over Portland. And I'd sit quietly in the house before I started work, because I'm a carpenter, and the reason why I stopped working there is because of my back and my sciatica. But going from that apocalyptic phase to being into something like the whole peace and love and light kind of thing, it was an extreme jump. It was kind of like when people have been Christians for a long time, and then they realize that, you know, they don't believe it anymore, so they don't just stop believing, they become anti-Christian and very rebellious. Or if a child has been suppressed by his parents for a long time, they rebel extremely when they get older. Or if they've been kept, anytime humans have been kept from doing anything, you know, they might lash out later. But anyway, I went to the extreme of trying to live, dare I say, love and light, you know. I actually, I will admit it, that I signed more than a few of my comments to people on YouTube with, you know, love and light. And I ask myself now, I just feel like an idiot for even saying it. It's not because I don't believe it, it's because I realized that I was using somebody else's phrase that I'd heard because those people seemed peaceful. Because I'm a follower too. We're all followers. Once we admit that, we can realize that's fine. what we're looking for is good leaders. We don't have to lead ourselves. We need good leaders. Oh, here I am, some stoner guy. Don't mind me. We need people who are honest about themselves and honest about the world that they live in. That live life on life's terms, not on how they wish things would be or how they think things must be, because in their minds they believe it to be that way. And true leaders just tackle things as they are. And unfortunately that means that they have to say things people don't want to hear. And when people don't want to hear something, they're very anti-everything. So, anyhow, moving on. I took my channel from being in that whole love and light thing to basically taking kind of a hardline approach to reality and saying, this is, the reality to me, when I say hardcore reality, I guess, I mean that you wake up every morning and realize, I'm a fucking human, I'm gonna fucking die, I have to eat, piss, shit to survive, I have addictions, compulsions, lusts for men or women, depending on who you are, attachments to certain behaviors and drugs, and all the while we're trying to just be human and just change our minds with the times, there's people pointing their finger at us and saying, you changed your mind, you used to say this, or you're just too wishy-washy, you can't make up your mind about what you believe. I've had people try to pin me down and say, well, you're either this or you're that. And I say, no, I'm whatever you want me to be, because I don't give a shit about your opinion. And honestly, that's how I feel about people who you can't resolve things with, because you can only take love and light so far. People shit all over each other. And, I hate that, because when I say it, that puts out kind of an air of negativity by saying, oh, people, it's a dog-eat-dog world, but to a degree it is. And it's funny, I had this discussion earlier, actually, with my wife and my older son. He's 21, and we were talking a lot about these deeper philosophies about life. And I was just like, I said, that there's two ways to look at the world that you have to remember that they're both correct. One is that we're all here together on this mysterious floating ball. We don't know why. It's an amazing life. It's short. And we're here to help one another, therefore perpetuate the entirety of the species. And that means we have to love one another, be tolerant and acceptant and kind, and be fair and honest, which means that you don't take more than your share. And all of these things we believe to be true. At the same time, you could also say, here we are on this beautiful ball in the middle of space. It all starts out the same, floating mysteriously, but we have a short life and we're going to die one day, so we might as well get the best we can, because there are people out there who don't make any effort, who don't give a damn, who treat others like shit, corporations who are taking advantage, so therefore we justify how much we're willing to rip off a company. Or, for example, I proposed the question, I said, well, what if somebody said they could get you $2 million, and they could swindle it out of Walmart somehow, out of their corporate, headquarters, and it'd never be missed. If you knew that you could get $2 million out of a corporation like that, like Walmart, and it would never be missed, and you'd never get caught, would you take it? And that's, people would either say hell yeah, or they'd say hell no. The moral values, it's a little tougher to distinguish. Exactly at what level would you be willing to do it? Would you steal a candy bar from the grocery store if you were starving? Of course. So we all have our limits. So there's no set in stone, this is how you're supposed to be, and this is how you should be. So if you're not changing with the times, and you're not flexing your brain, you're falling behind the rest of the people. So my point being that those people who are so stubborn, they choose to live their lives selfishly, wrapped up in all their own things and everything. It's easy to say, why not make $1 on those people? Or the dumb rich people who go out and they're going to spend millions of dollars on a Rolex or thousands of dollars on a Rolex and say you can sell them a fake Rolex. Is that bad? Is that corrupt? If you knew that you could sell a fake Rolex to somebody they'd never know, and you'd make a lot of money, and everybody's happy. These are some of the types of moral dilemmas. These are the questions that you might see on a job application these days, actually. It's crazy, but these are things that kind of determine character of a person. what it comes down to is it usually comes down to a monetary issue of would you steal from this, or would you, take advantage of this person or do that, but it's usually for personal gain. And what we find is that if we no longer seek that personal gain for the sake of gain, then we start to understand. And that really brings me to, I guess, the point, which is this quote that I really like, that you can never cheat an honest man. He never wants for anything more than he is owed and deserves. And whenever a person's trying to win that lottery ticket or pull one over on another person, or maybe win in the stock exchange because somebody else loses, or there's luck, there's blind luck, there are fortunes to be made honestly, but for the most part, a person with integrity stops at a point and asks themselves, what do I really want out of life? Is it money? And it's usually no, it's not. I had a discussion with somebody actually last week about alchemy, and they were saying how alchemy is strictly about lead into gold. And I said, no, it's not, because any alchemist who ever made it to the point where they could turn lead into gold would already be advanced enough to know that the gold will do nothing for them. That the gold was never the end desire. The gold is merely a metaphor for purifying man's thoughts and values and integrities. The true gold is changing your negative thoughts into positive ones, and we know this, the mental alchemy, which is a perfectly coinciding and metaphorical version of the actual metals, but tempering and metals and the malleability of metals, and the way that they relate to us, they're good comparisons. Anyway, I think that the brain is very malleable, and it's very easy for us to get wrapped up in negativity, and it's also very easy for us to get too wrapped up in positivity, and eventually we balance out in the middle and find a good cruising altitude. When I was, my anniversary was yesterday, and we stayed at a motel, the Kennedy School in Portland, and there was a bunch of Jerry Garcia stuff, like Grateful Dead. On the floor we were on, there were some various rooms related to Garcia, and there was a little picture, a painting with like Garcia in the corner and a guitar, and then a thing that Jerry Garcia had wrote, and I don't know, it must have been back in the 80s, and it was a big long page about that he'd written, and it was on a big poster board, and it was basically, in a nutshell, said, as a musician, sometimes things aren't clicking and sometimes they are, but when things are working right, we're not playing the music plays the band. And he says when an artist and when somebody's flowing in their natural flow, and he says it's not just musicians, it's everyone, when everything is going right, everything just clicks and the world flows through you. You're in the zone, is what they would call it today. And down at the bottom it said sometimes you can't stop and think about it or it all falls apart. He said it's like walking across a rickety bridge. Just don't look down and trust that you'll make it to the other side, and you will. And the funny thing was, I read that bottom quote first and didn't know what the rest of it was about, but my first thought was philosophical about life. He was talking about playing music, but he was also talking about metaphors. He was saying how, he said whenever he tried to use metaphors, people would say, what the hell is this guy trying to say? So it was difficult to express what a person's thinking through music or words, and often I use more metaphors than I probably should, but I'm learning to speak in metaphors and think in metaphors, because it helps me to understand this bigger cycle of life, whatever you might call it. Because I think that everything, as above, so below. My 6-year-old told me that the other day. He said, did you know that there's a universe in every atom? And that, and that every atom looks like the universe or something. And I was just, God, the kid's so fucking smart. Of course, the person may say, hogwash, what are you talking about? An atom's an atom, the universe is the universe. But that very metaphor, you got to understand the metaphor. No, there's not literally a universe in the atom, but there is. Because everything's a reflection of itself. And so, as we're growing, as we're learning, we should be pliable. We should be willing to change our opinions as we learn new things. And we should be willing to accept other people's opinions. Because when I started this channel, I met a lot of assholes and a lot of good people, and over the 4 years I've grown to really love the type of people that leave comments on my videos. I mean, I like all the comments. Some people even leave something and say, hey, I don't comment very often, but this, and I want people to know I read every single comment on my page. I try to reply to as many as I can because I just feel obligated to do it because people ask questions. But I gotta say, sometimes I don't. If I just give you a thumbs up, I'm sorry, I just don't have the time. I don't type very fast. But a lot of folks don't realize not only do I have YouTube, but I also have a shitload of emails to answer every day, and private messages and stuff. And emails take a long time, especially even the ones for the herb business, as well as just personal, because people have a lot of questions. And I love helping people. I do. That's been something I've wanted to do since I started this channel. I've wanted to find a way in my life to help other people to grow. Yet over the last couple of years, I've grown so humble about what I know that I don't feel like I could teach, in the sense that I feel like I could sit here and tell people, think positive and think good thoughts, but to put it simply, I observe what other people are teaching when they're trying to help others, and it just seems like hogwash to me. Trying to get a person to change their mind about life is not something you can just say, go do it. Brain chemistry is complicated. People's lives are complicated. Maybe a really good psychiatrist that understands people could get right down to the bottom of the thing. And maybe some MDMA therapy could help a person, ultimately learn about themselves. But if you're not honest with yourself, if you don't admit the truth about who you are, you'll never be happy. That means you have to be happy with yourself, with all your flaws, and you don't have to be happy about the flaws. But noticing them and accepting them means that you will work on them over time, and you will grow to be a better person. All of us can do it. And yeah, we deserve to be recognized when we're good people. You're damn right we do. Because if society is going to pick out and recognize people who do bad things, then goddammit, we should be able to stand out and say, yeah, we do good things. And it doesn't take any money. It doesn't take any real effort to be a good person. They say it takes many more muscles to frown than it does to smile. Frowning sucks. What's the point? And before I leave on that note, I'd like to say I understand why a lot of people do frown and they're sad. And it can be because of anxiety, depression, marital pressures, job pressures, life pressures. And some people have serious problems that need to be dealt with that they just cannot get over in basic day-to-day life without some help, and that's totally respectable and understandable. But I'd say that a majority of the people I hear complaining are just it seems like they're just trying to get attention. Like I said earlier to somebody, you can cry in your beer and nobody's really going to care. Everybody will pat you on the back, but at a certain point, you've got to pick up your boots and go. This last thing is something that I also left on a message earlier, and it really is something I said, if you think that life is amazing, is a wonderful thing, then the best thing you can do is live it to the fullest and make it the most you can and live it as long as you can. But if you think that life completely sucks, then also the best thing you can do is to kick its ass by doing the best you can, living life as long as it can. If you're angry at life, then get it back by living a good one. You can't lose. It is a win-win situation. And I've debated with people about thinking positive. They say you can't just think positive because life is horrible, people are horrible, the universe is horrible. If people want to see things that way, that's their choice, but I don't think that anyone wants to see things that way. I think that people really want to see things happily. You want to be able to look around and even look at your problems and your shortcomings and say, fuck it, I'm doing the best I can. Talk to y'all.